Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today what we're going to be doing is talking about the Relic 8, Relic 9 problem, and why this game isn't ready for Relic 10. This is going to be part 1 of a 2-part series. So the part 1, we're going to be explaining why Relic 8 and Relic 9 are widely underused, why I think many players struggle to get there, and then in part 2, which we'll release tomorrow at the time of recording, I will be explaining the steps needed that I think this game has to take in order to make Relic 10 a legitimate possibility, right? So let's dive right into our video. First and foremost, let's thank my channel members. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your support. If you guys are interested in joining channel memberships, link in the description down below. Otherwise, if you want to support this channel and you can't afford that, that's perfectly fine, right? Just subscribe. That's all I need you guys to do. Smash that subscribe button, leave your likes and leave your comments. That helps this channel so much. Again, getting noticed on YouTube is a huge deal. Thank you guys again. Let's keep growing this channel. So, why is Relic 8 and Relic 9 this huge problem that's kind of keeping us from Relic 10? Let's first start out with my characters here. I've got 4 Relic 9s and I've got 10 total Relic 8s. Now, in terms of where they're situated, only 2 of these characters are at a level beyond what they're required at. With Admiral Piet being a Relic 8 requirement for Executor, and I have him at Relic 9, I actually got him to Relic 9 like the day before Profundity was released. It was brutal. So, there wasn't anybody that needed Relic 9 yet. I gave it to Piet. Obviously, you guys know our King hit Relic 8 when the channel hit 5,000 subscribers. So, our King finally on his lofty Relic 8 throne, again, from the Relic 3 requirement that he's needed at for the Jedi Knight Luke event. Otherwise, everybody else is at where they're, completely required for their characters, for their farms. But outside of these things, Relic 8 is widely underused. I could bet you I could name, if you told me how many Relic 8s you have, and let me just see the characters you have unlocked, right? Because I would name every single GL first, right? But Galactic Legends are always at Relic 8, right? Malgus, Bosk, you could normally name the Relic 8s. It's pretty easy to figure out who and what people have at Relic 8. So, it's widely underused. And to understand why Relic 8 is still widely underused, you have to understand the process to go from Relic 4 to Relic 7. So just to paint the picture, this is what it takes to go from Relic 3 to Relic 4, right? Not that much stuff, right? It's pretty easy to do that. To go from Relic 4 to Relic 5 gets a little bit tougher, right? You're throwing in some blue signal data. But an Oroidium heatsink gets added. Again, this piece isn't that rare. It's not that difficult to obtain. It's very easy to craft with Mark III holo projectors. Make sure you fully craft them, though, to get bang for your buck. But again, not hard to do, right? To go from Relic 4 to Relic 5 takes a singular, unique piece. To go from Relic 5 to Relic 6, again, you're adding on those Oroidium heat sinks, which are an easier piece to obtain. You now get this unique piece of Electrium conductors, right? Again, not that absurd to think about. Again, a little bit more signal data. It is what it is, right? But Electrium conductors, again, more rare than Oroidium heat sinks, but not something that's impossible to get. And then finally, to go from Relic 6 to Relic 7 takes another unique piece of Zimbital cards, right? Again, on top of these ones, but again, more rare than Electrium conductors, but still not something that is absurd to ask players to get. It's not something, it's something that can occur. They won't occur naturally. You don't get a lot of them through various channels, but you will get there eventually, right? You can get these things. They're not horrible to craft. So that's Relic 4 to Relic 7, right? That each time going from 4, going from Relic, if you think of it to get to Relic 5, 6, and 7, each one takes a unique piece that, wasn't needed before. But Relic 7 to Relic 8 takes 2 pieces. You not only need all the previous stuff, but you need impulse detectors and you need error magnifiers, right? It's a 2-part thing. It's a 2-part issue. Now, when Relic 8 was first released, just to go back, initially the problem was always the impulse detectors, right? Because the challenge pit raid would give out these error magnifiers in droves. You would get them from territory wars, right? Players were accumulating these things naturally. But you were not ever accumulating these impulse detectors naturally. That was not the way it was occurring. So, what you had to do was, craft these impulse detectors, which wasn't easy. Now, right, error magnifiers are so much more difficult to get. Right? Because the challenge pit raid is no longer here, these things are a lot more, absurd to obtain. You can get them in the guild store, weekly shipments, right? Which they're not cheap. Conquest hard mode will give these out in box 5 6, and 7. Not a lot, right? Box 5 gets you 2. Box 6 will net you 5. And box 7 will at least get you 10, right? So, you know, you're getting them in hard mode. They're not easy, but you're getting them. And then for Territory Wars, if you're in this 240 million GP bracket, you can get them for a win. To get them for a loss, right? If you get second place, right? To get a lot, if you lose, you need to at least be in this 280 million GP bracket to get a single error magnifier. And that remains consistent all the way up to 300 to the max level, right? 380. Right? So those are error magnifiers. They're difficult to obtain. I'm not going to pretend they aren't. I think that, you know, they're something that can accumulate naturally as you get higher up in the game, but for a lot of players, like you think for 240 million GP, just for the sake of argument there, right? That is a 4.8 million. I think it's 4.8, right? 4.8 million GP? Let me do the math there. Someone tell me. Hold on. We're going to do math here. I need my calculator. I'm an accountant. All right, so 240 divided by 50. Yeah, 4.8 million GP, right? Now, to get the error magnifier for losing, you need to at least be at 280 million GP. So if I get out my calculator and I do 280, right, because again, an accountant here, you need 5.6 million GP per player, right? That's the way that math is shaking out. So at this point, right, again, just for the, you know, argument's sake, right, you know, you're kind of at this point where it's pretty brutal to, you know, just for a single error magnifier, right, for losing. Now, Relic 9, on the other hand, right, takes 2 pieces. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. Got a little excited there, guys. Got jumpy. So, to go from Relic 8 to Relic 9 takes 2 pieces. Girded keypads, which, again, can be crafted, and we're not going to get into how ridiculous they are to craft, but they're there. But it's the droid brains that you can get in Territory Wars, again, and in weekly shipments for obscene value. So, it takes, again, 2 pieces plus an entire Relic 8. So now you have these pieces that we've already said are obscene to obtain, right? Between the error magnifiers and even the impulse detectors, right? They're not easy to get. And now you need them yet again to go from Relic 8 to Relic 9. So, you know, Capital Games has this huge problem on their hands, right? Not enough people are, you know, engaging with these higher Relic levels because the cost to get there is so crazy. It's beyond just the fact that you need impulse detectors and error magnifiers, which are both, you know, more difficult to get. They're easier now than they were in the past, I would say, together, right? The fact that I can use currencies to buy both of them is a lot better than getting a crazy amount of one and like 0 of the other, right? Like the impulse detectors being a lot easier, I think is still a net win for the game, because before it was really tough to get those things. Like the amount of crafting you were doing and stuff, I thought it was insane. So, you know, I'm fine with the way it is now. I think it's better, because I think what it'll do is that if you're like, oh, I'm just going to buy error magnifiers all the time, you'll get to this point where you're like, oh, I have enough error magnifiers, now I need impulse detectors, right? Like, you know, you'll find the balance. So that's the Relic pieces, right? Those are the ones that's kind of like, that's the big reason why I think a lot of players are, you know, not engaging, is because because they're not common enough, right? To get to Relic 9 takes so much that players can't just do that for fun. That your average player is going to get to Relic 8 for their requirements, or a Relic 9 requirement, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't do that again. But there's another problem here, the other villain, right? And there's another villain to all of this that kind of looms over everything, that I think you don't really recognize how big of a drain it is on an account until you're trying to do those higher Relic levels. And that other villain is signal data. Signal data is the single biggest bottleneck in the game, because every character needs it at like every level for relics. And you need, just to show you guys this, right? I'm going to show you something, and then, you know, you guys will understand where we're going with this. You need 165 white signal data to go to Relic 9, 170 green, and 175 blue, right? So in total, that is 510 signal data, right? 510 total signal data for a single character to go from Relic 0 to Relic 9. across however many, 250 some odd characters in this game. I mean, it's absurd, right? That's a lot of signal data. But here's the part that I don't think people truly comprehend, right? If the amount of resources you have to spend to get those blue signal data, right? Because it takes me, say, I don't know, for 165 white signal data, I bet I could probably manage that in like 4 days, right? They have a pretty decent drop rate. I bet I could do that in about 4 days. I got about 40 of them. If I did that node the entire time, I bet I could get about 40 of those in a day, right? 170 green, you're probably looking at maybe 5 days. And 175 blue, I mean, I'm not crazy to say that I think that's taken me probably, I don't know, 8 days, right? Get about 20 of those a day, maybe a little bit more, right? I mean, you're looking at probably 7 or 8 days to get that. I mean, you're not getting those quick. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of signal data. And the thing is, the reason I say that this is one of those bottlenecks that you don't always recognize just how crazy it is, it's because of the way that a lot of us, we're just going and doing a Galactic Legend farm. So we're going to spend the bare minimum signal data, unlock that character, and move on to the next thing, right? But if you had to sit there and take every single character to Relic 9, I mean, you'd still be farming stuff, right? Because most Galactic Legends take maybe 300, 400 blue signal data, right? Which is, what, 3 characters worth to Relic 9? I mean, what? Right? You think for 15 characters you're using, to get to various Relic levels, you're using that, what it would take 3 characters to Relic 9. Like, that is where I think people don't recognize just how much signal data it takes. And that's where I think this game needs to evolve from, right? As someone who is currently trying to go for higher and higher Relic levels, I've found myself spending crystals on blue signal data because I can't get enough of it from the cantina, right? That I need to spend it on blue while I farm the white and I farm the green, which is keeping me from being able to spend crystals on things like impulse detectors and Gerda keypads and droid brains and all that, right? That if I had those crystals freed up, I could spend them on the pieces to get higher Relic levels. And I know, woe is me, right? First world problems or whatever. No, but the point I'm making is that we have to spend so much of our time just trying to get signal data because it's not nearly, signal data doesn't come naturally through like Kyrotex do, right? Kyrotex being the other huge bottleneck in this game. But the average character does not need 500 Kyrotex, right? They don't. I guarantee you that if you averaged it out, you'd maybe be looking at, 300 Kyrotex per character? If you averaged it out, because you think like your newest characters, they almost always need like 400 signal data, right? But like, Farm Boy Luke needs 100. Stormtrooper Han needs 100. Commander Luke Skywalker needs 100. Jedi Knight Revan needed 100, right? They don't need that many Kyrotex, so they're kind of making up for these guys like Supreme Leader Kylo Ren who need like 700 total Kyrotex. But they all need 500 signal data. And that's where I think keeps so many players from being able to interact and engage with Relic 8s and Relic 9s is that our resources are going into, you're having to spend the resources to try and get the signal data just to get there, that doing one character felt like it takes forever because your signal data farm, right? So, again, as part 1 here of why aren't we even interacting with Relic 8s and Relic 9s, it's because you've got, multiple factors, right? I mean, Relic 8 is very rare as it is, but it's doable. But I would say Relic 9 is a lot less common. It's a lot harder to get Relic 9 materials. But then on top of all of that stuff, it's the amount of signal data you need, right? That the signal data, having to pour your resources into that instead of being able to pour that into the Relic materials to get the job done, I think that's what's causing Relic 8s and Relic 9s to be so rare and players not to engage with them. So again, guys, this is part 1, right? So tomorrow, right, and this is, all these are leading to like, Relic 10, we're not ready for it because we can't even get to Relic 9, right? Like that's the, if you haven't caught on yet, we're not ready for Relic 10 because players can't even really engage with Relic 9. And let's be clear by what I mean by engage, because everybody's going to be like, well, Phil, you have Relic 9s. Yes, I've got 4 of them, and 3 of them are on characters that are required for a specific farm. That's not engaging with Relic 9, right? Engaging with Relic 9 would be when, if I had a whole team of Relic 9s. And I'm not saying that I should be at the point yet where I'm getting there, because Relic 9 is the pinnacle of this game. That if I had a full team of Relic 9s, at, as a free to play at 9.2 million, like that would be crazy, right? That really would be crazy to have, 5 characters all at Relic 9 on the same exact team. That would be crazy. Because you look at the Relic 9s I have now, I don't even have enough for a full team. So, yeah, I mean, it's not absurd for me to say that. But it kind of leads into you're not ready for Relic 10 if, at 9.2 million, where they would probably consider me a more advanced account than not, I just, I don't see where the resources are there for players to be able to engage with something like that. So you guys let me know what your thoughts are, right? What do you think about, if Relic 10 does come to the game? Again, part 2 will be releasing tomorrow, and I'll talk about the steps Capital Games would need to take in order for Relic 10 to come into the game, be a success, and fit in and make sense. So like and subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.